Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Model Car Cup Series. Have not done an update in about a week on our 132nd Goodwrench Lumina, so I thought I'd bring you up to speed on where we are, what we've gotten done, what's going to happen next, and just kind of show you how we got where we got. Let's get to it, guys. When we left off, if you recall, we had the back portion of our chassis painted and we needed to do the front clip, top and bottom. So we used our baggie, taped it off as you see here as a mask for the rear portion, and then we got our front clip painted. And we're going to start on the bottom of the car here. First thing we did was, you saw the mocked up rear end and all that stuff. The suspension is done, but I want to wait till I get the roll cage, pretty much everything else finished before we install the suspension. But I went ahead and did some of the bottom here. You see our sump tank. And this piece right here, this screen, is for the rear end cooler. And what I used for that was I took, I have the photo etch sets in 24th and 25th scale from Model Car Garage for the Lumina, the Grand Prix, the Tauruses, the Thunderbirds. I got probably one or two of all of them. And what I did was I took some of the brake duct work and I cut that down into smaller pieces, rounded the edges, and that's how we got this piece. Let me find my pointer here. So we put this here, and you see these lines that are hanging out down here. These will go to the rear end from the rear end cooler. The heat shielding here is something I learned probably 15, 16 years ago from my buddy Clay Kemp, and that is from the inside of a cigarette box. The kind of insulation or the paper that they use in there. Here's a close-up of it as you see here. Another police officer, a friend that I've known for I don't know how many years as a smoker. So I told him, save me some of your boxes, and here you go. So you can, it's glued to the box, but you can disassemble the box and you can get this stuff out of it, and it makes great shielding. And to that end, as you see, we cut it into a couple of sections. I used some Mod Podge, kind of brushed it down, and then burnished it into it. And of course this helps from the exhausts, which I've already hit. This is just a mock-up of the stains on the exhaust, but put that here. This deflects the heat from getting right under the driver's seat. And you'll notice in this picture, the under the driver's legs, the shielding down there, that is actually the same cigarette paper, just painted just Tester's flat black, just simple. And then I've got the Protec nut and bolt heads kind of holding that down. But so that's where the belly is right now. I think it looks pretty good. Going up front, well, let's look at the jack screws first. You see in the pictures here, well, you can kind of see them here in the light, but the jack screws, those are 0090 threaded rod, brass rod from Walthers. You can get it from Hobbits, different sources, but it's 0090, and that I could find, that's about right for the scale here. I used 0080 on our 24th and 25th scale. The steering box bolts, that's Protec, as you see there. And we'll get to the oil cooler here in just a minute. But that is, now of course, this snap together kit did not have a steering box that came with it. So I'm going to jump ahead here just a little bit. And I went ahead and made, since it doesn't have one, made the steering box. And I don't know, let me grab something that'll hold behind it, maybe you can see it a little better. Here we go. So we made a steering box, and I've already mated that up to the front suspension arms, and a stainless steel rod for the shaft. And when I drill out and put this through the firewall going up to the steering column, I've already made a bushing that will go through the, there we go, through the firewall. And this is going to have to be cut way down. That's obviously way, way too long. And that will attach, of course, right there. Well, going back the other way, obviously. But, so there's that. Also, and here's a picture, a close-up of our scratch-built oil filter assembly. And here's some pics of how I made that, just using 20 and 10/1000ths sheet plastic, as well as just a, I think that's 20 by 20 to make that, and then just put a light wash on it. And the 32nd scale decal sheet had the GM and the AC Delco, and that's where I got the decals for the oil filter. So that is done. Now those will be going in. And looking up front here at the oil cooler, as you see in this picture, that came just a blob and a block of plastic just molded on there that I guess you could just paint it silver. Well, what we did was we took some, again, that photo etch grill work from a 24th scale car, and cut it down, filed it down a little bit to get it to fit, and we got our screen look. And I think the still picture is showing that a lot better from the front. The back side, oops, sorry guys. Yeah, the still pictures here are probably going to look better. And then you see where we've drilled it out for where our lines and stuff are going to be coming in and out of that. I'd imagine all of the front work, the front plumbing and all, is going to take about maybe a day. But I'll have that done pretty quick. Before we get into the interior part, let's go to the trunk real quick. As you saw in the opening thumbnail, in the tile there, you saw the inside of the trunk. And by the way, here's a picture of the actual lumina inside the trunk. You notice the number 3 on the fuel cell. And in that there, I've got about 3 sets of these decals. I got plenty of 3s, so I just took one of the rim decals and I stuck that on there. And as you can see, the layout is pretty much the same, and you'll see all the rest of that as we go along too. By the way, this fuel filter here with the AC Delco decal on it is just a piece of K&S aluminum rod with some Tamiya transparent. I was trying to get my fingers on the thing here. Yeah, there we go. Just a piece of K&S aluminum rod. I cut it to the length, hit it with the transparent red, then we put our fittings on it, and then we ran that fuel line. And as you see in this picture, the bolt heads on the corners of the fuel cell straps are 20/1000ths Protec bolt heads, or well, nut and bolt heads. And then of course there's another look at our gauge backs, all of that. Fire extinguisher was also scratch built, had to scale that, and I used the measurements from what was molded in, as well as trying to scale some of this down is a little more time consuming. And then we've got our fire bottle, and thank goodness that decal sheet in 32nd scale came with a fire extinguisher decal. The shifter had to be shifted back, so to speak, because the mount for it is way up underneath the dash. In fact, it was hard for this not to be hitting the dash, so I cut the hole further back and then made a plug. Let me take this dash back off for a minute. I've only got this kind of mocked up. Now you can see how much further up this thing was originally supposed to mount, and that was way out of... Again, it almost wouldn't go. It was so far under the dash. So we shifted that back, and then we cut a little bit away from the bottom so it would move back. So we have our shifter in a good spot there. And getting into our lines and fittings, for the cooling, some of the plumbing that's visible here. I can get this thing back together. There we go. We got a breather here on top of the sump tank. We've got our AC Delco decal. Then we've got our lines, and I'm hitting that camera again. Sorry, guys. And some of these I'm going to be showing you in still pictures because they're easier to see. But as you can see here, the lines that come out and go down. And as you see in this picture, you get a good look at the jack screw bolt, but you also see that the rear end cooler was just a blob of red, right shape, but it just molded into the chassis. I started to cut it away, but it was just going to be difficult to get in there. It's a little tight fit. So I decided to leave it in and do some decaling. And again, you see the screen here, a little round portion in the front and back of the rear end cooler. That screen is just from one of the windows from, I think it was the Grand Prix photo etch set, the NASCAR Grand Prix set, and had to cut it down a little bit, so I used my micro punch again to punch out just the centers, and then we did our plumbing lines that run through there that are going to be going around the rear end, and you see where they come out here, and they'll be attached to the rear end and to the rear end pump. Then we've got yet to go. Well, like I said, the suspension will go in last. The roll cage is painted. The padding is all painted, and I've got some heat shrink already shrunk down and on some of the center bars. So that'll be coming up next time you see it. You'll see all that probably with the suspension and everything else. And I may even go ahead and, I was trying to save the body for last, kind of just surprise you with it, but I may show you that one in the next video. But this, I'm really pleased with where it is so far. The shocks, I've already done some test fitting, and as you remember from the last video, those really looked good. So we'll go ahead and get the holes drilled in the firewall for the plumbing lines. We'll get this seam taken care of and start getting some of the plumbing done up through there and get our steering shaft, all of that stuff installed as well. And I think this is coming along for 32nd scale. It has been, there's been more challenges that I did not expect, and I'm sure I'm going to run into some more as I go along. But so far, it's not been, there's been some challenges, but they haven't been overwhelmingly anything that I can't handle. The only thing thus far that I've been able to see as far as the body is concerned is the windows. I've test fit them 2 or 3 or 4 times outside of the chassis, being under it, and then with the chassis, and I've discovered that the front window and the opera windows, the side windows, really terrible fit. Really terrible fit. Big gap in the windshield up front, so I'm having to adapt that and make some pieces that are going to kind of tighten that up a little bit so it'll have a more flush fit. The other problem was the rear window. If you see the package shelf back here, and by the way, if you remember, we had to add this plate here because of the sink marks that I could not fill. And there was also one, if you can see this little plate right here, had to put one here and then that one right here. Also, from it being snapped together, there were holes and little things. You see this little, I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a little square plate right there, that just something to cover those holes. I think it's going to be okay. But anyway, this, as you see, just is not even remotely the right shape for this back window. If we hold it there, you see this is way off. So what we did was, and I've got some stills here too, but we took some 10/1000 sheet plastic, something really ultra thin, and we just used the shape of this to cut that. And it'll need to be trimmed down just a little bit more, but it's a nice, perfect fit for that. And we'll cut this probably about halfway down through here, and then we'll get this painted semi-gloss or flat black as you see in the real Lumina. I started to just do it in the interior color, but every one I've seen on the Lumina, the package shelf portion is either black, flat black, or semi-gloss. And then we'll get this fitted probably, well, my old hands don't work like they used to. Probably about like that. So that looks like that's going to be right about where it's going to need to fit. We'll get that painted and glued up in the next day or so anyway. You see where I had to remove the side windows. The rear window is the only one that actually fits pretty well as far as no gaps. Those side windows, wow. And I may end up having to just use some clear sheet plastic and remake those, because it's pretty bad. The windshield's the other one that's going to be the biggest challenge, with the biggest gap is that windshield, but I think I know how we're going to fix that. Guys, that's where we are right now, and like I said, the engine is underway. Transmission starting on, but we'll see about that. But wanted to share this with you. Some of you have seen a lot of the updated pictures and stuff that I've posted on some of the Facebook pages of where we are, but I wanted to share how we got on some of that. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. But again, I'm kind of pleased considering the challenges of 30-second scale. And I love the contrast, and I don't know if you can see it in the in this light or on camera, but you've got the bright red for the fuel cell, and then the poppy red that they ran on these chassis, which is more of an orangey red. But I love the contrast there. Same with the fire extinguisher, or the fire bottle, excuse me. But I think coming along great. Guys, thanks a bunch. Appreciate you very much. Head over to HobbyNut Models. Check out Mark's inventory. If you need some of that poppy red, any of that great MCW paint, be sure to check out his line. They've got the stock car colors. They've got your muscle car color. He's got about all of it. Great, great stuff. And check out the inventory over there. Just got a lot of new military stuff in too. And as I shared with you, the seat belts for this, which we'll be looking at next time, are from a 30-second scale aircraft that I've reworked quite a bit and worked out perfectly. Also, you saw the safety net. If you've been keeping up with any of the pages. In fact, hold on just a minute. Let me grab... Oh, it's in the dehydrator. I'll show it to you in the next one. Here's a picture of it. It's a Replicas and Miniatures of Maryland piece. It's brass, and I just put this thing together. I've already got it rolled over where it's going to be hanging down inside the car. But 30-second scale. Hey, why reinvent the wheel? So, but I think it looks pretty good. But the seat belts, the safety net, everything's coming along just great. And like I said, we'll have that interior hopefully finished, plumbed out, everything done next time you see it. Might be a week or so, because I'm focusing intently on the Corvette over the next probably maybe the whole week, but I'm going to be focusing on that vet this week, and then we'll come back to this. A lot more done, and we'll let you get a peek at that body. Guys, again, head over to HobbyNut. I think that's it. All right, guys, before I start rambling, God bless. See you in the next video. Thanks.